I play a lot of CK3. I think it's a fun game and it's the only Paradox game I've really given the time of day. But recently, I was looking around my Steam library and I stumbled upon Stellaris. Now apparently I have 12 hours in this game, but apart from my friend very broadly teaching me how to play it, I have no memory of ever playing this game. So, out of curiosity, I decided to boot it up. I don't want to directly compare these two games, and that's because they're completely different and trying to achieve different things. But while playing Stellaris, I definitely found a lot of things that I would like to be implemented into CK3, and I'll get into that later in the video. But let's start from the beginning. One of my favourite things about CK3 is the DLC bar that Paradox puts into every single game. I'm joking. What one of my favourite things actually is the character customization, and although it's very different, Stellaris did not disappoint. It wasn't too long before I created the Slugmen of Planet Mulch, and I also dove down a rabbit hole of what ethics and political state a slug would choose.
Do slugs go to war? Okay.
I don't know either. So, I had a species, a name, some sluggy ethics. Now I just needed to play the game. I picked a Unity focus build. I know, I sound like a pro already. So my Unity was looking pretty good. I also decided to go down the discovery route because apparently it's good for exploring fast. Right off the bat, getting hit with any new Paradox UI is like getting hit by Mike Tyson, but I was beginning to find my way around it. A few moments later, and I had decided to be very open with new life. Maybe a little too open. And speaking of which, a few expansions later, and we discovered atomic alien life, which I found very cool. I had no idea that this was in the game and I was very excited. I immediately sent over some science ships to research, and it turned out that they were on the brink of blowing themselves up, but still, I'll keep an eye on them. Meanwhile, Planet Mulch was turning out to be an absolute utopia, with 0% crime. The Slugmen were getting on very nicely. I've been blessed with an amazing surrounding of resources, and I also had zero competition, which meant my economy was booming. Now, at this point in the game, I was kind of being a pussy. I had almost zero combat experience, and the combat experience I had previously was not promising. So for now, I was going down the diplomatic route, but this didn't pan out how I expected later down the line. I'd run into my first threat. Ancient mining droids were posted in the this one, not too far from me. I had no idea what they wanted, nor what they were doing, as they didn't seem to be mining. And even though I outnumbered them now, I had no idea what kind of threat they could pose that I hadn't discovered yet. So for now, I ignored them. And I just realised I had a beautifully colonisable planet just under my nose. So the first expansion of the Slugmen began. I'd discovered some new mining droids, and they were beginning to put me on edge. I'd also been building up a military, so I was becoming quite confident. So I decided to send my fleet into their first combat. We won, with zero issues. One thing I love about this game over CK3 is the combat. I mean, just look at this. And with this new bloodlust discovered, I was on to the next batch of drones. Another thing I really wish CK3 would add is a market or trade of some kind. Having individual resources that you can manage is so fun compared to this gold stat that depends on your arsehole of a steward. Like, imagine if farms and fields created food, and then with that food you could trade it with a state with less fertile land and grow your economy. I like the market. Remember that new colony I built? Well, knock knock, here comes an extinction level asteroid.
Holy shit.
Luckily, we're not chimpanzees over here, we're slugs of Planet Mulch, and I'd recently upgraded my space station, which absolutely decimated this thing. Still, I had a little panic, as I'd never seen this pop up before. The miners were still on my border at this time, and it wasn't too easy to take them out, which got me a little worried, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Up until this point, the only aliens I'd run into were these atomic stage reptiles. But this was all about to change. It wasn't long before we got past first base and we got to see these beautiful aliens, who apparently would prefer to be left alone. Which we didn't do. We continued to bother them until they finally agreed to a meet and greet where I considered insulting them, but instead decided to just stick it down the middle and spy on them. Another thing I like a lot about Stellaris is the fact that you don't know someone's power as soon as you meet them, and it's something that you have to learn over time. I know there's mods for this in CK3, but I wish this was in vanilla. It felt like the floodgates had opened as we were already getting to meet our next alien friends, who were also hideous. I guess we can't all be blessed with slug-like beauty. They were, however, suspicious of me, and seemed to be kind of assholes, so I didn't really like them. It seemed like I was the big daddy of the two aliens I'd met so far, as they were both severely inferior to me in troop size. My greedy brain was already ticking, but I didn't really know how war works in this game, so I decided not to do anything silly. Yet. I'd spotted this rather large creature in the system outside my borders, so I decided to show him my military might. Unfortunately, he was a little larger than expected and humbled me by destroying this entire fleet. I'd also just found this lovely, beautiful automatic construction button, which is just mwah, chef's kiss. It was around this time that I got invited to a Galactic community. I accepted as this sounded exciting, and it made me feel like I was in Star Wars. Unfortunately, as I decided to join, I also realised I had 2 new ships that I could start playing around with. Great timing. And the Galactic community was now in motion, leading me to discover a couple other powers in the galaxy. Now, I had no idea how this mechanic worked, so it took me a little while to get my head around, but it seemed to be pretty simple. All you do is suggest something you want to set in motion, and people vote, or someone else suggests something and you vote. I'd also discovered some hazard warnings in the system next to this wormhole, but I'm sure that won't be an issue. I felt like I was just gonna have to not go to war for a bit. This was until my neighbour decided to shit on my porch and build a space station in a completely crucial star system.
Ah, you bastard.
You see, behind the system was an abundance of resources and star systems that I wanted. Although his borders were open at the moment, should he decide to close them, I'd be slightly screwed. I knew I was going to have to go to war, but now just wasn't the right time. One of the things I've been really enjoying about Stellaris is the sense of discovery that comes with it. I feel like my slugs are always discovering something new, and the galaxy actually feels like something I want to learn about. For example, this gateway that's just in one of my systems. I don't know why it's there, what it does, or how to use it. It's just kind of there, and I like it. I wish CK3 had more of an element of discovery and different cultures meaning more than they do in the base game. Something I was also learning is that all my new friends had an atrocious military. I don't know if I had the difficulty low or something, but they were all real losers compared to the behemoth that the slugs have been busy building. Now I've been kind of minding my own business down here, growing my economy, killing the odd mining droid, and just focusing on building my empire. Up until this point, I was under the impression that if I was to go to war with someone in the Galactic community, they would all turn against me, which meant I avoided it. However, this was not the case.
Oh shit. Okay.
I was alerted to the fact that the Tendrakians and the Rutharians had gone to war, and more importantly, no one else was joining in. It seemed like war was an option for me. I started claiming up some land that I wanted, especially in the star system that would unite my empire, but I wasn't quite ready. Do you remember those mining droids I discovered? Well, I'd found one of their big bases, and it had become increasingly apparent that I was unable to coexist with these droids. I decided to cleanse the galaxy of their presence. After this, I finally decided I was ready. I'd noticed that my neighbours had an increasing amount of ships on my border, and I didn't like it. Unfortunately, I'd be going up against a few extra aliens with this, but I didn't really care as they were all weak in comparison to the might of the slugs. I'd stationed my military so that they were ready to attack 2 systems at once. I was going to crush them. I decided to fire my Minister of State because I was at war with his homeland, and I had a feeling he wouldn't like that very much. The first battle was finally upon us. And it went pretty well. This was my first war in the game, and I didn't really know how they worked. I figured it would be a case of the more planets and ships I beat, the better. So that's exactly what I did. But just after I had moved my military around, these guys that had been hanging around minding their own business decided it would be a perfect time to invade some slugs. So far though, they didn't really seem to be doing that much damage, but I had to make a new fleet to take care of them in the near future while my troops were busy. The war was going well, but I wasn't making much progress, so I decided I would have to push harder into enemy territory. After pushing into their unprotected systems, I'd finally met their main force. After this, I received a rather upset transmission and they surrendered. The slugs of planet Mulch had shown their dominance and united the Empire. There was one small, unresolved problem though. We had done it. The slugs of planet Mulch had asserted their dominance across the galaxy, and I really felt like I'd had a good feel of how Stellaris played and what it was like. There is so much stuff that I didn't have time to include in this video, like one of my scientists crashing on a pre-FTL system and then rebelling against me.
Oh. This is the scientist.
Or having to relocate aliens that lived on this gas giant. I'm sure I've only scratched the surface of what this game has to offer. I really enjoyed trying out this game and I hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you're new here and you enjoyed, consider subscribing. And for those who are already subscribed, thank you. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!